Every morning when you wake up, you pick up your phone and open your banking app. When you see the numbers, you feel safe and breathe a sigh of relief. Or so you think. In reality, those numbers aren't real. They're just an agreement, a trust system. And if history has taught us one thing, it's this. Every trust agreement breaks one day. Every system believes itself eternal. Every currency thinks itself invincible. And then one morning everyone wakes up and it's all gone. No system is eternal. This is history's most reliable pattern. And today we're going to talk about what this pattern means. Because the question isn't, will the system collapse? The question is, are you ready? Let me tell you about the Byzantine Empire. Byzantium lasted over 1,000 years. It was the eastern half of Rome, surviving long after Western Rome fell. At the heart of its power was a gold coin, the solidus, like the dollar today, like the euro, like the yuan. Trade ships accepted it, kings hoarded it, merchants trusted it. The solidus was the symbol of trust. But here's where the story gets interesting, because over time, emperors noticed something. Gold was expensive, wars were expensive. The empire was large, costs were high, and they found a solution. They started reducing the gold content, 5% less gold, then 10%, then 20%. The coin still looked the same, but the value inside was shrinking every day. At first nobody noticed, then merchants noticed. The solidus wasn't worth what it used to be anymore. Trust diminished. And when a trust agreement breaks, it shatters fast. The Byzantine economy wobbled, trade slowed, the empire weakened. So who survived? Those who trusted paper promises? No. Those who held real gold, those who owned land, those who had skills. The empire told them, trust this coin, but the smart ones said, no, I trust real value. Now stop and think, what about your money? Your dollars, your euros, your lira? Is it paper, a digital number? Who prints it? Who controls it? Who can devalue it? In Byzantium, the emperor devalued the gold. Today, central banks print money. Governments borrow. The system prints more money to keep going. And you look at the numbers in your bank account and feel comfortable. But are those numbers any different from the solidus in Byzantium? History tells you. Actually, you just think your solidus hasn't cracked yet. When we reach the 14th century, the Black Death hits all of Europe. Between 1347 and 1351, half of Europe's population declines. Streets fall silent. Cities empty. Families vanish. The economy doesn't stop, but it transforms. Because here's where the entire system changes. When people become scarce, labor becomes valuable. The wealthy always thought they would stay rich, because they had gold. But the plague taught them they couldn't eat their gold. A nobleman died in his palace surrounded by piles of gold. But a farmer planted vegetables in his field and lived, because money can't bring you food. People who produce food bring you food. And when they're dead, your gold means nothing. You know who rose after the plague? Craftsmen, bakers, blacksmiths, carpenters. Because when the population is cut in half, every skilled person becomes twice as valuable. The rich who couldn't produce had to beg. The poor who could produce prospered. History tells you a truth here. Money is temporary. Skill is permanent. Now let's jump to 2020. The pandemic hit. The world shut down. Offices emptied. Restaurants locked. Millions lost their jobs. But some didn't. Who didn't lose? Those who could work remotely. Who could write code? Who could design? Who could consult? They worked from home. Life continued. But what did a waiter do? Lost their job. What did a retail worker do? Lost their salary. What did a factory worker who had to be physically present do? Got laid off. What was the difference in the Black Death? Skill. What was the difference in 2020? Skill. 600 years passed. Technology changed. But the rules stayed the same. Those who can produce are always valuable. Those who can't are vulnerable. And now, maybe you're asking yourself, what can I produce? I just work at a company. I just collect a salary. But what if that company closes tomorrow? What if that salary stops tomorrow? What's left? In the 15th century, Florence was the world's financial center. The Medici family and other bankers were like today's billionaires. Gold and silver accumulated in vaults. They lent money, collected interest. Wealth grew. But in 1494, the French army came. Political chaos erupted. Overnight, all wealth turned into a trap. But what did the wealthy bankers do? They tried to flee and couldn't carry their gold. Some were robbed. Some were killed. So who survived Florence's collapse? Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Machiavelli, artists, thinkers, writers. Because their wealth was portable, it was in their heads. They went from Florence to Rome, created value there. Went to Milan, created value there. Wealth wasn't in the vault, but in the mind. And the mind could create value everywhere. Think about today. Where are your assets? In a bank account, in the stock market, in a house? If a crisis comes tomorrow, can you carry those assets? If bank accounts freeze when you wake up one morning, if the stock market crashes, if home values drop by half, what's left? The knowledge in your head remains. The skill in your hands remains. Your ability to create value in a new place, in a new system, in a new world remains. Or it doesn't. If your only value is a number in a bank account, when that number disappears, unfortunately, nothing remains. Look at the Great Depression, October 1929. Wall Street collapses. Banks fail. People line up for food. But something interesting happens here. In cities and big metros, there's panic. People are starving. But in rural areas, in small towns, a different story unfolds. There, people live without money. How? They barter. A man fixes his neighbor's car. The neighbor gives him chickens. A woman sews a dress, gets potatoes in return. No money but value exchange exists. The economy hasn't stopped, just the medium has changed. Because the economy isn't money itself, the economy is people giving value to each other, and that value can exist without money. But what happens in cities? People live for money. When money runs out, value doesn't disappear, but people have forgotten how to create value. Nobody knows their neighbors. Nobody shares skills. Everyone is alone. And when crisis hits, loneliness becomes deadly. History shows you two things here. First, community bonds are an invisible safety net. Second, the more dependent you are on the system, the more vulnerable you are when it collapses. Now ask yourself, do you know your neighbors? Can you share something with them? When crisis comes, do you have a community to help each other? Or are you, like the city dweller in the Great Depression, alone? World War II ends and Germany is in ruins. Berlin is destroyed, factories bombed. The Reichsmark worthless. People carry money, but nobody accepts it, because paper without trust is meaningless. But look 15 years later. Germany has Europe's strongest economy. How did this happen? The Marshall Plan helped, yes. But where was the real power? In people's minds. Engineering knowledge, discipline, work ethic, organizational ability. War destroyed everything. But it couldn't destroy knowledge, couldn't destroy skill. And that knowledge, that skill, rebuilt everything. Before money comes capacity. If capacity exists, Money is created. If capacity doesn't exist, no matter how much money there is, nothing can be built. The Soviet Union collapses in 1991. A 70-year system vanishes overnight. Pension funds lose value. The ruble means nothing. People in Moscow are starving. Even though they have salaries, shelves are empty. Money exists, goods don't. But what's a farmer in Siberia doing? Growing his own vegetables, raising his own chickens. Not dependent on the system, the crisis doesn't affect him. There are two types of people in crisis: those dependent on the system, and those independent from it. The dependent fall. The independent stand. Now think, how dependent is your life on the system? If electricity cuts, if water cuts, if supermarket shelves empty, if bank accounts freeze, what do you do? Can you last a week, a month, or a year? The 1998 Russian financial crisis hits. The ruble loses 3/4 of its value. Banks collapse. Imported goods vanish. But who isn't affected? Those with dachas. A dacha is a small country house, with its garden, chickens, a small world. While office workers in Moscow starve, grandmothers in the countryside pickle vegetables, grow produce, milk cows. For them it doesn't matter if the system collapses or not, because they're self-sufficient. The modern world taught us one thing: get everything from others. Food from supermarkets, electricity from companies, water from utilities, money from banks, and as long as these systems work, everything's fine. But history teaches us something else. These systems collapse. They always have. They always will. And when they collapse, the self-sufficient survive. Argentina collapses in 2001. The peso floats, banks lock their cores, the corralito. People can't access their own money. Savings are hostage. Lives are hostage. But something starts in Buenos Aires. Trueque, barter. People start exchanging value without money. I'll cut your hair, you fix my car. I give you vegetables, you give me bread. Neighborhoods even create their own currencies: credito, patacon, local exchange tools. And the system works, because money is a tool. The real economy is people giving value to each other. In Argentina, banks closed, but the economy didn't stop. It just found a new way. History tells you here, you can live without money, but you can't live without value. 2008 came. Lehman Brothers fell. The world shook. Homes were lost. Retirement funds melted. But notice, the crisis didn't hit everyone the same. Detroit was dependent on automotive. Automotive failed. Detroit died. Athens was dependent on tourism. Tourism stopped. Athens collapsed. Spain was dependent on construction. Construction failed. Spain suffered. But Switzerland, Denmark, small German towns, they were diverse. When one sector failed, another held. Diversity is insurance. Dependence on one thing is a death sentence. Now think, does your income come from one source, dependent on one employer's decision, on economic fluctuations in one sector? If diversity exists, crisis is difficulty. If diversity doesn't exist, crisis is catastrophe. In 2019, something happens in Lebanon. Banks close their doors. People can't access their own money. The Lebanese pound loses over 90% of its value. A lifetime of savings becomes pocket change in a day. Doctors, engineers, middle-class families become poor because their wealth was numbers, and numbers disappeared. History gives you its most brutal lesson here. The money in your bank account isn't your money. It's a loan you gave the bank. And the bank can decide in a crisis not to pay it back. They say, your money is safe. But what did safe mean in Lebanon? Nothing. Now we've arrived here. All these stories are telling you something. Money systems collapse. Banks fail. Governments fall. Currencies devalue. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is history's most repeated truth. But some things never disappear. Skill doesn't disappear. A blacksmith can still use a hammer even if the system collapses. A doctor can still treat patients even without money. A chef can still cook even if banks fail. Talent doesn't erode with any inflation, doesn't get lost with any government decision, doesn't require any bank approval. Skill is the purest wealth. Relationships don't disappear. Community bonds are invisible but real. If your neighbor knows you, they'll help you when you're hungry. If your community values you, they'll find you work when you're unemployed. But if you're not connected to anyone, if you're alone, crisis will swallow you. Because loneliness is modern life's greatest luxury, and in crisis times the deadliest weakness. Knowledge doesn't disappear. The knowledge in your head is the safest vault. Jewish families fleeing Nazi Germany lost their gold, lost their homes, but they didn't lose their knowledge. They became doctors in America, engineers, teachers, because knowledge is portable. Borders can't stop it. Dictators can't steal it. Inflation can't erode it. Flexibility doesn't disappear. Being able to adapt to change, to learn new things, to transform. In 2020, those who learned remote work survived. Those who couldn't became unemployed. Businesses that went digital grew. Those that didn't collapsed. The world is changing, and those who can't keep up with change become history. Independence doesn't disappear. If you're not tied to one company, when that company fails, your life continues. If you're not tied to one country's currency, when that currency collapses, it doesn't affect you. If you're not dependent on one system, when that system collapses, you survive. Independence is the most critical security that the modern world forgot, but history reminds us of. And here you realize, the modern world taught you wrong. It said specialize, but specialization is fragility. It said be loyal to one job, but loyalty is risk. It said trust the system, but systems collapse. Real security is diversity, multiple skills, multiple income sources, multiple communities, multiple plans. History doesn't teach you to go deep. It teaches you to go wide. And here's the darkest truth. Crisis isn't a disaster. Crisis is a transfer. Wealth doesn't disappear. It just changes hands. From the unprepared to the prepared. In 2008, some lost their homes, but others bought at the bottom. During the pandemic, some lost their jobs, but those who learned new skills rose. Every crisis is two stories, one of destruction, one of opportunity. And what determines which story you live isn't the amount of money you have, it's your preparation. Now let me make a suggestion. The next crisis is coming. You know this. I know this. History knows this. Maybe in 5 years, maybe in 15 years, maybe tomorrow, an economic collapse, a pandemic, a war, a technology revolution. Something's coming, and when it comes, if you only have your bank account, you're vulnerable. If you only have your salary, you're fragile. If you only have one job, you're in danger. Because these can disappear. One decision, one policy, one night. And when they're gone, what remains? If you have skills, they remain. If your relationships are strong, they remain. If your knowledge is deep, it remains. If you're flexible, it remains. If you're independent, it remains. These are real wealth. These don't run out. And those who have these will stand when money runs out. History is sending you a warning. perhaps also an opportunity. Because now you know and now you see. Money is temporary, value is permanent. Systems collapse, but capacity remains. And when the next crisis comes, you'll be ready, or you won't. The choice is yours. If this video showed you something, subscribe, because history will show us more. And I'm showing you where to look.